Welcome back to Learn Notes with the Bible, where we help you grow in biblical knowledge and understanding. If you're looking to uncover powerful truths, hidden lessons, and life-changing stories from Scripture, make sure you hit the subscribe button and join us on this spiritual journey. Today we dive into one of the Bible's most incredible war stories, not one of brute force, but of faith, patience, and obedience. The Battle of Jericho. Picture this. A newly appointed leader, Joshua, stands before the massive, fortified city of Jericho. Behind him, thousands of Israelites await God's next move. No siege weapons, no battle cries, just a divine plan that defied logic. Why would God command them to march silently for 7 days? Why use trumpets instead of swords? And what does this story mean for us today in the battles we face? Stick with us as we uncover the story, verse by verse, and reveal the spiritual strategies God gave His people to bring down walls that seemed impossible. Don't forget, subscribe and watch to the end, because the lessons buried in this ancient battle might be exactly what you need today. The call to courage, Joshua's moment of destiny. After the death of Moses, God chose Joshua to lead Israel into the promised land. In Joshua 1:9, God says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." It was a clear command, but not an easy one. Jericho was a terrifying obstacle, a symbol of resistance against God's promises. With towering walls and seasoned warriors, the city seemed impenetrable. Yet God gave Joshua a strategy that made no earthly sense. In Joshua 6:2, he declared, "See, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with its king and its fighting men." Notice the tense, "have delivered." God spoke of a future victory as if it had already happened. That's how faith works, and that's how God works. He calls His people not to fight with human strength, but with divine obedience. Think about the walls in your own life. Are they emotional, financial, spiritual? What if God is calling you to trust Him in ways that seem illogical because He already sees your breakthrough? A march of faith, obedience over logic. God's battle plan was unlike anything Israel or Jericho had ever seen. For 6 days, the Israelites were to march once around the city silently with 7 priests blowing trumpets in front of the Ark of the Covenant. On the 7th day, they were to march 7 times, then shout. That's it. No siege towers, no battering rams, just walking and waiting. This plan tested Israel's faith. Joshua 6:10 records, "Joshua commanded the people, saying, 'You shall not shout or make any noise with your voice until the day I say to you, shout.'" Imagine the tension. Soldiers marching in silence while Jericho's guards mocked them from above. But Israel obeyed, step by step, day by day. And that's the lesson. Faith doesn't always look like fire and thunder. Sometimes faith is obedient silence, persistent trust, and walking when you don't see results. Are you in a season where God's instructions don't make sense? Keep walking. Your 7th day is coming. The walls come down, a supernatural victory. On the 7th day, after 7 silent laps, Joshua gave the command, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." Joshua 6:16. The priests blew their trumpets, the people raised their voices, and suddenly the walls collapsed. Not from earthquakes, not from weapons, but from divine intervention. Joshua 6:20 says, "When the people heard the sound of the trumpet, the wall fell down flat." Jericho's defenses crumbled like dust, and Israel walked straight in. What seemed impossible became reality in a moment of faith-fueled obedience. But the victory didn't come from human effort, it came from trusting God's process. In your own life, the walls may seem strong and unmoving. But when we follow God's voice and obey His timing, He brings the walls down, not by might nor by power, but by His Spirit. If you've ever doubted whether faith still works today, this story is proof that it does. Rahab's redemption. God sees the hidden heart. In the midst of Jericho's destruction, there was one unexpected story of mercy. Rahab, a prostitute who hid Israelite spies and asked for protection. Joshua 6:25 says, "But Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute, because she hid the men Joshua had sent as spies to Jericho. Her house was built into the wall, but her faith tore down walls of judgment and gave her a new future. She became part of Israel and is even listed in Jesus' genealogy, Matthew chapter 1:5. That's the heart of God. Judgment and grace side by side. Even in a city marked for destruction, God made room for redemption. Maybe you feel like Rahab, on the margins, misunderstood, marked by past choices. But God sees you. When you trust Him, even when the world around you is falling, He lifts you up. Learn Notes with the Bible is here to help you see stories like Rahab's with fresh eyes, and to remind you that your past doesn't disqualify you from God's plan. Lesson. The story of Jericho teaches us that God doesn't always fight battles the way we expect. He values obedience over strategy, silence over shouting, trust over tactics. Whether you're facing battles in your health, family, career, or spirit, remember what Paul wrote in Hebrews 11:30, "By faith the walls of Jericho fell after the army had marched around them for 7 days." It's not about the marching, it's about the faith behind the march. So today, if you're standing before your own Jericho, take heart. Keep marching, keep trusting. Your obedience is preparing the ground for your miracle. At Learn Notes with the Bible, we want to walk with you through every chapter of faith. Subscribe now and join us in discovering more biblical truths that will build your courage, deepen your understanding, and help you tear down the walls in your life, one promise at a time.